Hey, we're back. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. I'm Jamey Eisenberg. That's Dave Richard. That's Heath Cummings. Why do I keep screwing up your name all day today?
I'm not sure.
Heath Cummings, Dave Richard, I'm Jamey Eisenberg. It's been a while since we've been here together doing this show, so we're glad to be back. It's week 6. We've got a big game tonight, Thursday night, between the Giants and the Eagles. Should be a fun one there. And you've got a lot of fantasy football information to give to you for your starts and sits to get you covered, looking at our rankings. So we'll start right there with the quarterback rankings. It's going to be fun to discuss this position because a lot of big questions. We know Lamar Jackson's still not expected to play. That's not fun. We have 2 teams on a bye with the Texans and the Vikings. So for those of you who've been leaning on C.J. Stroud, not going to have him, and obviously not going to have whoever's starting for the Vikings when they come off their bye. But let's show you the rankings here, the 1 through 12 quarterback rankings here, looking at the guys that we consider must-start options. And we're going to discuss the toughest player to rank at this position, something that we do quite a bit here. And you don't see, I guess we'll go kind of with the names on the list here, but we'll start with your guy, Heath, and that's Jayden Daniels. And so a guy that came back last week after a 2-game absence, did not play great, but that had a lot to do, I think, with Jacory Krosky-Merritt and what he was able to accomplish. Taking on the Bears, why was he tough to rank?
He's tough to rank because he was my #1 quarterback coming into this year. I think he's a fantastic player, and he has a great matchup against the Bears. The downside is I didn't think he looked 100% healthy or comfortable last week. Jacory Krosky-Merritt was awesome, and that same bad Bears defense that could be good for Jayden Daniels could be great for Jacory Krosky-Merritt, and he doesn't have Terry McLaurin. So I'd like to rank him as a top 3 option. My projections actually put him closer to 11 or 12. And so I think you're probably still starting Jayden Daniels, but there's some names ahead of him on this list that you could have with Jayden Daniels that you might start over on.
And you may have picked up a Matthew Stafford or a Dak Prescott or some of the names, like you said, that you see there, Jordan Love, who's got a great matchup as well against the Bengals. But you would, I guess the big question is if you have Jayden Daniels and drop that other quarterback, would you go back and pick him up?
If I have Jayden Daniels, I'm not adding anybody else. If I added Matthew Stafford while Daniels was out, and I have Stafford and Daniels, I'm starting Stafford.
Okay, interesting there. I probably would agree. Let's go down to the other list because I want to talk about 2 guys that Dave and I have as tough players to rank for this week, and that's the list 13 through 24. So the number 2 quarterbacks, which is where these guys are sort of living at this point. One guy on the cusp there, Justin Fields. The other one would be Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, 3 games at home this season. 20 or more fantasy points, taking on the Cardinals.
Yeah, it looks good, but you know who also does well is Jonathan Taylor, and I think this matchup is going to be another big game for Jonathan Taylor. We haven't seen Daniel Jones using his legs a lot in his last 3 games, and he's topped out at like 20.7 fantasy points in each of his last 3 games. He's been lower than that in 2 of the 3. And so I'm a little bit nervous about putting him in that same group that was on the first list, that top 12 quarterback list, because I'm not sure he's got that same type of upside, especially in a game where Arizona might not be able to compete on the scoreboard.
When we have the quarterbacks 13 through 24, you're looking at guys like Sam Darnold. You're looking at guys like Mac Jones, who's expected to start with Brock Purdy out. Would you start them over
Both of them over Daniel Jones for sure.
Okay, so interesting there just based on what we've seen, body of work over the course of the season. For me, the toughest guy to rank for this week is Justin Fields. And the thing that I love about Justin Fields, obviously the last 2 games he's been over 29 fantasy points. 3 games this season that he's been able to finish over 29 fantasy points. Now he's taking on a Denver defense that does not allow rushing production to quarterbacks. 13 carries, 15 rushing yards, 1 touchdown on the season to opposing quarterbacks. And we're not talking about guys that don't run. We're talking about Justin Herbert, been one of the best running quarterbacks this season. Jalen Hurts last week did not run on the Broncos. I don't know if that's by design or just by their defense. I'm going to guess it's their defense. So for me, Fields outside the top 12. Where do you guys come out on Justin Fields for this week?
I still have him. I think I have him exactly 12th in my rankings, Jamey. And it's because what I saw last week from him, the first half of that game against Dallas, he was dreadful. And then garbage time kicked in. The Cowboys weren't rushing him like crazy. And he put up 22 of almost 30 fantasy points in the 4th quarter of that game. And this could be the exact same situation. And I don't want to start anybody just because of that, but he's also been a little bit better throwing against man coverage. He's been a little bit better when he's pressured. Denver's probably going to do those things. They did those things to him last year when he was on Pittsburgh. There's too much upside there. And so if I knew for sure that Denver could absolutely shut him down on the ground, then I'd be out on Justin Fields as well. But I think he'll be able to run a little bit. I think he'll throw just enough to be okay for fantasy this week. And if I'm wrong and he ends up running for 2 touchdowns, then it's going to be a great week for Justin Fields.
It's just the poor version of the Jayden Daniels argument, I think. You know the guy has the ability to go score 30 fantasy points, and how low are you going to rank somebody that might do that? I think it's the difference between him and Daniel Jones. Jones did that once this year, but we don't think in this spot with the way he's been running he has that upside. Fields does.
It's just you don't want to wait to see 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns
Oh, you don't watch him.
And don't
watch him play.
But that was against Dallas, though. Denver can
Denver's defense is definitely better.
Suffocate him and make this terrible, terrible performance. So if you can get away from Justin Fields, I think we would all start Matthew Stafford, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Fields.
And Jordan Love, too. You mentioned him.
Jordan Love,
Jayden Daniels.
And again, if you want to go the Mac Jones, Sam Darnold, maybe Daniel Jones route over Justin Fields, just based on the matchup. I was getting to some starts and sits for the position because, again, a lot of people have some questions about some of these guys that are, in some cases performing poorly or have some difficult matchups. So the starts, Heath, you got Matthew Stafford. Dave, you got Drake Maye. I got Dak Prescott. Heath, we'll start with you. So in the case of Matthew Stafford, I'll just bring this up before you get into the positives and the negatives, if there are any negatives. The weather could be an issue in Baltimore. So that's something that we've discussed on our podcast and a little bit elsewhere. Potential rain. And I don't know, that may change some things for you, but just in terms of Stafford taking on Baltimore, what are your expectations?
I don't worry too much about weather on Wednesday or Thursday usually because rain's not going to make me change it. It's wind, and wind forecasts on 4 days in advance are not very reliable. If the wind's over 20 miles per hour, I'll be downgrading Matthew Stafford. He might still be ahead of Justin Fields. This has just been a fantastic start for Matthew Stafford. He has arguably the top 2 wide receivers in the NFL in terms of a duo. He is putting the ball where it's supposed to be. 11 of their 14 touchdowns on the season have been through the air. Baltimore is stopping absolutely nothing. I think it's just really simple math. When you have a quarterback averaging 24 fantasy points per game and he's facing a defense that's giving up 28 fantasy points per game, you start that guy.
We saw the Ravens make a couple of moves this week. They added C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They traded for Alohi Gilman. That's helped for their secondary. I don't care one bit. This is a Matthew Stafford, huge game ahead. Same thing for Kyren Williams on the ground. You're going to start your Rams in this matchup. That defense still isn't going to be good enough, nor are they going to put pressure on Stafford. That's a huge key. As long as the weather's nice, he's a top 6 quarterback.
And Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith potentially returning as well. Those guys weren't there last week. And C.J. Stroud, of all people, went for 20-plus fantasy points. So hopefully Stafford, who's been over 700 passing yards the last 2 games, he's been fantastic, keeps it going. All right, Dave, so you got Drake Maye coming off his worst fantasy game of the season in the biggest win of his career.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And he's taking on the Saints. This is a much easier matchup for him than Buffalo in week number 5. We know the Saints, they're actually pretty good against the run. They have not been good against the pass. 4 of 5 quarterbacks have had at least 20 fantasy points against New Orleans this year. The 5th, last week, Jackson Dart was decimal points away from having 20 fantasy points in the game. And Jackson did it with running. Drake Maye might be able to do it with running. He might be able to do it with passing. I love that Stephon Diggs is back to being a number 1 receiver. And Hunter Henry has helped him out before, too. This is a top 12 quarterback. I'd start him over Justin Fields this week.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, obviously, with what Maye should be able to accomplish, and hopefully will continue to do so. And for me, Dak Prescott has been great. Again, it's funny. You lose, you get a situation where Maye has his best win, doesn't have his best performance. You get a situation like Dak Prescott loses his best receiver, and he starts to play much better from a fantasy perspective. Obviously, a lot had to do with the matchups playing the Jets last week, for example. But I don't think this Panthers defense is anything that he should fear. This should be a game where the Cowboys do whatever they want to. Javonte Williams should have a big game. George Pickens should have a big game. Jake Ferguson keeps it going. We'll see if maybe they get lucky and you get CeeDee Lamb back, but that's not expected. But just based on what this defense showed last week, gave up over 28 fantasy points to Tua Tagovailoa. I think Prescott has an opportunity to keep it going. So a potential top 5 quarterback. Let's go from the starts to the sits. So for Dave, you're sitting Bo Nix. I'm curious about that one, taking on the Jets. Heath, you're sitting Daniel Jones, which you kind of got into. And for me, it's Jared Goff. So why are you afraid of Bo Nix against the Jets?
It's not afraid of Bo Nix. I'm worried about the upside. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that we've already talked about that have some good upside. I don't think Bo Nix is one of them against a Jets team that's allowed 19 or fewer fantasy points to 3 of the past 4 quarterbacks they faced. Dak had a monster game against them. I don't know if Bo Nix is going to need to have a monster game against them. And he didn't have a monster game last week. Tougher matchup, no question, against Philadelphia. And he played well in the game. But I think this could be a matchup where we see J.K. Dobbins get going even more and a little bit of R.J. Harvey. I like Nix. I don't love Nix. There are too many other quarterbacks that I would take in my top 12.
So Dave said it was hard to rank Daniel Jones. The only thing that was hard for me is I knew I'd have to answer the question, why are you not buying into Daniel Jones yet? And the thing that concerns me is what you said. It's the lack of rushing. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown the ball much all year. He's thrown it efficiently a few times, but it's 30 pass attempts per game. His last 2 games, he has 1 rush attempt in each game. His last 3 games, he does not have a rush attempt inside of the 5-yard line. They've used Jonathan Taylor there a lot. They've used Tyler Warren there a lot. If Daniel Jones isn't producing at least 3 or 4 fantasy points per game with his legs, I don't think he's a top 12 quarterback just with his arm.
It's interesting to see which Daniel Jones will show up again. At home, 20 or more fantasy points in all 3 games, but can he do it one more time against a Cardinals defense that's just been so hard to trust? Their opponents have been so favorable. It's been the easiest schedule in terms of facing opposing quarterbacks. But we'll see if they can do it one more time and just slow in Daniel Jones up too. And I don't know, and I think to your point, it's not so much about the Cardinals, it's about what Daniel Jones will or will not accomplish. For me, it's about Jared Goff. We know this isn't the best setup for him going outdoors against a very good defense. He played them last year in Kansas City. He was not great, 250 passing yards, 1 touchdown in his only trip ever to Arrowhead, and I think it's going to be tough for him to have another big game there. Just what we've seen, 3 outdoor games so far. Bad against the Packers, didn't have to do much against the Ravens, great against the Bengals. Well, clearly it's great against the Bengals. So I think with what the Chiefs have shown you so far, only 1 quarterback so far this season, multiple passing touchdowns against them. That was Justin Herbert. Wasn't in America, doesn't really count. So I think you look at Jared Goff right now, somebody that you can get away from for this week. This just isn't the best setup for him. Next week gets the Bucs. You're going to love Jared Goff. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We come back and get into the running back rankings. Our buddy Robert Turbin's going to join us. You don't want to miss discussing the Chargers running back situation. Who can you trust? Kamani Vidal, Hassan Haskins? We'll get that answer next.